All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another round of critiques for the Brian Peterson School of Photography. My name is Chris Hurtt, and I teach Understanding Exposure, the Art of Seeing, and the Nikon Flash class, along with Brian at BPSOP. And we are doing critiques this week, starting with one from Derek Lata in Florida. Made this image from my balcony, which overlooks downtown Miami. Placed my Canon 5D Mark III 7200 on a Vanguard tripod, tripped the shutter inside with a Pocket Wizard on camera and the camera on my hand. 10 seconds or so, approximately 25 shots. Chose 3 and put them together into one image and converted to black and white in Photomatics. This is amazing. I mean, it's incredibly dramatic, the amount of lightning you captured. I think you did a good job of not overdoing it as far as you have a good mix. Since you were blending in Photoshop, sometimes we can overdo it. You've got a lot of smaller lightning strikes and these little ones here and a few major ones that really draw attention in. And I like the effect that this had on the long shutter speed had on the water as well. So it's a great composition. This is all about the sky, and most of your composition is given to the sky. We have a pretty great sense of scale here as well with these very tall buildings coming across that way, and it's really beautifully done. Couple quick things, I mean, since this is a really great shot to maybe play with in post-processing, and that would be, I might deepen the blacks here a little bit. I'm bringing up the levels tool. You can do this in Camera Raw, but the levels tool I find gives you pretty good control over the highlights are over here and midtones in the middle and shadows are over here on the side. So I'm going to bring that up and I'm just going to deepen these shadows a little bit to add it, because I really like especially this area right here where we've got just these deep dark clouds that are kicking out this lightning, and I think it adds a little bit more drama to the scene. It's fairly subtle, and this is something, I mean, back in the film days you would have done in the darkroom, or could have done in the darkroom, I should say. So it's not cheating by any stretch of the imagination. It's something that could have been done back then. You converted to black and white in Photomatics. I myself am really a color guy, and I imagine you could have had some really deep blues here. But another idea that you could also play with here, if you wanted to, would be to just use the Camera Raw and bring the color temperature over to the blue side. So a couple little things there to play with if you want. Obviously, the color is a personal choice for sure. But I think deepening those shadows brings out a lot more of the drama up there in the clouds. But fantastic job putting that together. And a great capture. We have a shot here from Carl, 7100 on with a 55 to 200 kit lens at 200 f22 handheld. Wow, that's tough to do up close. Nice job. When you get up really close like this, depth of field gets really shallow. And it's hard sometimes to handhold. I mean, if you move forward even a quarter of an inch, you can knock everything out of focus. So nicely done hand holding. I mean, you got a nice fast shutter speed, 3/20ths of a second by taking the ISO up. Settings manual took this in a series of shots where my only intent or purpose was to practice trying to achieve very dark or perhaps even black backgrounds while maintaining proper exposure on the foreground subject on a bright sunny day. Note the f22 setting. It is not the aperture I would have chosen to achieve a blurred background, but it came close without any Photoshop Lightroom blurring or smudging while achieving the darkened background that I was looking for. This is really well done. I love the starburst effect you got here. That is actually, for those that don't know, I mean, there's a couple things going on. When you get up really close like this, depth of field gets very shallow. F22 will give you just a very fraction of actual sharpness here. You find that if you shoot at wide open apertures like f2.8 or f8 when you're up this close, you will end up with only part of your subject, even if it's very, very small, in focus. So that's why f22 is an isolation aperture when you get up this close. I mean, it really will knock the background out of focus, as you can see. This is one of the reasons macro lenses can stop down sometimes all the way to f40, is because the depth of field gets so shallow. The starburst effect that you got here is the result of being stopped down to f22. And for those who aren't aware of that, I thought I'd show you. This is from out in San Francisco on the Bay Bridge, and we've got, let's go here. If you look at the street lights here, we've got a real change in the starburst effect. This was shot at f2.8, and you can see that there's no real twinkle on those lights. This is at f8, and this is at f22. So you can see just the huge effect it has on the effect on those lights, and that's just the aperture change. I'm not seeing much of a depth of field change in this case because everything's pretty much at infinity here, but aperture has a tremendous effect on that starburst effect. So the more you stop down, the greater that effect will be. This is a perfect example of a time when a bullseye composition or a dead center composition works pretty well. We often tell people that, you know, having your subject dead center is not ideal because the viewer will go in and stop in the center and not enjoy the rest of the elements in the photograph. But there's certainly always cases where you can break that rule, and this is one of them. We've just got this sparkle of light literally emanating from dead center and just bringing us right in. So beautiful job on that, well put together. You made all the right choices as far as aperture and all that, and fantastic job. Now on to Amelia here, and this was taken under the shade, ISO 800, f13, 12/50th of a second, with a zoom lens at 22 millimeters. So the first thing I would say, if you're at 22 millimeters, that is a fairly wide focal length. The general rule, if you're hand holding, is that you want to have your shutter speed be faster than your focal length, and this is, it's different for everybody. From person to person varies a lot. Some people are really good at hand holding at very slow shutter speeds, but it's a good general rule of thumb. So that would mean in this case that if you were hand holding at a 30th or a 60th of a second, you would be fine. The reason I say this is you've got your ISO, you've got a very fast shutter speed, and your ISO is up at 800. And you're going to get a little bit of noise at 800 that you wouldn't have at a lower ISO. And I think you would have been perfectly safe here taking this down to ISO 200, which is your lowest natural setting on the 5300. You can also go down to the equivalent of ISO 100 with the low setting. But take this down to 200, and you'd still be in pretty good shape. Wouldn't have to worry about motion blur or sharpness, but would get rid of that little bit of noise that you have there. So I really like, we've got all these amazing lines in here, and this is just the way these lines pull us in, and we sort of travel in through that image this way. The only thing that really stands out to me here is this empty corner, and I say stands out in a distracting way, where it pulls us away from all of this interest in lines, and we've got this empty space, and it's also in a corner. Kind of provides it, we go over there as viewers and go, what's going on over here, and then we sort of leave. I think that if we could do without that, and that would keep us much more within the lines here, and because that's really obviously what drew you to this image, and where we spend time as viewers. So getting rid of that empty area I think, will really let those lines be even more dominant than they are in your original composition. Another thing to play with here, this is sort of how we would view this building if we were standing in this courtyard looking up a little bit, would say, oh, that's interesting. But you could mix this up as well and walk over by, around, looks like there's a walkway or somewhere you could get to. And try looking straight up at that point, and we're going to have these long lines leading us up into this, and you could sort of create an image then where line is a very dominant element. I mean, it's already dominant, but it would be so dominant that it would take the viewer a minute to realize what they were looking at. I mean, is that a building? Is it what is that? Because the line is really what the shot is about in a composition like that. So just a quick suggestion of something to play with there. And we now go on to the salt marsh, infrared photo converted to black and white. Spotted the channel leading the eye into the distance to storm clouds on the horizon. Nikon D90 converted to infrared. F4 ISO 418 millimeters handheld. This is stunning. I mean, the infrared effect is just fantastic, and this just leads us in. I love the line and the way we just literally carried into this composition and led to that incredibly dramatic sky. I mean, you've got this deep dark over here with this light. There's so much going on in here, and it's just fantastic. I don't have any suggestions on anything you could do or would do differently here, because this is just a great shot. Nice job. And then here we go to Barbara's shot. This photo is a bit unclear, but I love the way the shadow beak and the egret's real beak touch tip to tip. I want to show the beauty and the light and shadow in contrast. Although it seems to be an interesting photo, I do not think it communicates well. It is maybe more textbook rather than emotional. This was taken with the Canon 5D Mark III, f4, 4,000th of a second, ISO 160, 105 millimeters, spot meter, manual mode, auto white balance, hand held. Yeah, this is beautiful. The lighting is dramatic. I'm pretty sure that what is bugging you, I mean, this is a great shot. The light is fantastic here. I think if that bird had its head up and was looking at us or off to the side so we can see an eye, this would be everything you were looking for in the shot. Because it's beautifully lit and it's well done. I mean, it's a nice composition. You got vertical here with the long legs. That works very well. You're filling the frame. But I think the reason that you're not connecting with it is because of the head being the way it is. We've got all of our interest right here, and this is incredibly, I mean, what a catch with this amazing shadow and the head at that angle. And I mean, if you could move a little bit and get in there, obviously this is a fast catch, but even here, I mean, I think if you had, you know, a composition that was more like that, that's more what you're looking at, where it was more of an abstract that's focused on that area that makes this such an interesting shot. So that's why I think you're saying you just don't feel it communicates well, is because everything we look at is right here, and it's sort of composed as this great shot of a bird. But get in there closer if you can here. I mean, I don't think you could crop this. The angle would change, but I think that's what's going on here, as far as you feeling that it isn't communicating what you want there, is because it's all, this is where we spend 100% of our time as viewers, and we sort of, in our minds, crop everything else out. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you again soon.